The Fantastic Four is my favorite superhero team of all time, but man, has it been hard to be a fan of them for basically my entire life. With a TV movie that was never planned to release, two incredibly messy films then rebooted into the worst comic book movie of all time, along with Marvel editorial purposefully writing them out of the comics for a few years, we've been in the trenches. We couldn't even get them as skins in a Fortnite season that was centered around Doctor Doom, and they'll put anyone in Fortnite. They'd rather rip out the Human Torch's heart and use it to fuel a fireplace than adapt him. We are in hell. It seems like Fantastic Four adaptations are doomed to be cursed. There's a reason people say that The Incredibles is the best Fantastic Four movie. Nobody can get the team right. Despite being Marvel's first family and widely beloved, they've never gotten the care or treatment they deserve in the mainstream. But here's the thing. Hey, first time that's actually been relevant. Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four First Steps is right around the corner and looks to change that. And honestly, I think they will. Pretty much every single sign we've gotten in the development process has been a huge indication of the movie being good, most notably director Matt Shakman. Every time I hear him speak about the Fantastic Four, it's full of passion and clear that he has an inspired vision for this movie. It's very obvious that he's a lifelong fan and someone who is finally going to do them justice. Paired up with an incredibly stacked cast that are bound to bring the best out of these characters, we are in for a treat. Now, the movie did just wrap filming, so I may be a little late on this, but there are some very important things that Marvel need to get right if we're finally going to get a good Fantastic Four movie. Most of all being the family dynamic. There is nothing that defines the team more than that. The Marvel Universe has a shocking amount of teams in it. There's Avengers, X-Men, they got West Coast Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, even some Young Avengers, some Defenders. Did you know there were some Great Lakes Avengers? And that they're really good? Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. What I'm trying to say here is that with so many teams Marvel has to offer, the Fantastic Four stand out by being a true family. Most of the time, teams operate as co-workers or grow into a found family, but these four are a family in every sense of the word. If the film doesn't get that dynamic right, there's no point in making this movie at all. They need to feel like an authentic family and show what it's like through thick and thin. The unconditional love that comes with knowing someone your entire life and the unbreakable bonds built through years of friendship. Reed and Sue are a picture-perfect couple, with Johnny brought into the fold through being Sue's little brother, while Ben is the closest thing Reed has to family. Ben also embodies those found family tropes as he proves that you don't need to be related by blood or brought in through marriage to be part of the family. I appreciate the kind of friendship he and Reed have, and hope this movie does a great job highlighting it just as much as any other dynamic. Then you've got Reed and Sue, two star-crossed lovers destined to be together forever. It is a given that they need to become the new power couple of the MCU. But I mean, come on, just look at their chemistry offset.
I took an illegal picture and I sent it to you.
Yes, you did. You did.
I promise no one is going to see this.
It was deleted, but it was stored in my mind.
Both of them were made for these roles, and I have no doubts that they're going to bring that iconic romance to life. These connections between the four need to be strong and genuine, but they also need to be tested. The thing about families is that they don't always get along or see eye to eye. The Fantastic Four are the world's greatest heroes, but they are far from perfect. They bicker, argue, and tease each other, but at the end of the day, they come together to show that they still care. Balancing the good with the bad is incredibly important and something I think is often overlooked in these adaptations. It goes a long way in strengthening that family bond and making them more than just another team. And the best way to do that is to fully flesh out each individual member of the family, starting with Mr. Fantastic himself. It's crucial to me that they nail Reed Richards. In the grand scheme of the Marvel multiverse, Reed is the single most significant member of the team. He's going to be one of the faces of the MCU going forward, so they're going to have to get this right. And thankfully, we're off to a great start with Pedro's casting. If you're going to have someone be the face of the MCU, it can't look much better than this one here. But what I really want to see is Marvel give us the definitive version of Reed Richards and set the record straight on his character. There are way too many frustrating misconceptions surrounding Reed's characterization, and God, do they drive me crazy. An upsetting amount of people think Reed is this stone-cold, emotionless man of science who hates his family and is a complete asshole to them, which could not be further from the truth. Guys, please, you are describing the Maker. Reed is not some cold and calculating mastermind. He is the exact opposite of this. At his very stretchy core, Mr. Fantastic is a family man with genius-level intellect, obsessed with finding ways to solve all of life's problems through science. Fueled by an innate curiosity for the world around him and genuine kind-hearted love for his family, he's just trying to do the best he can. He's the smartest man in the world and could talk your ear off about quantum physics or the way the universe works, but struggles with simple things like small talk and interpersonal interactions. Reed is straightforward and honest, almost to a fault, but he only ever has everyone's best interest in mind. He often gets lost in his work and stretches himself way too thin with how hyper-focused he gets on things. If anything, he's too smart for his own good, but his family is there to support him and keep him grounded. There's nothing he wouldn't do to protect the people he cares about. He's really just a wholesome nerd who often makes mistakes, but uses them as opportunities to learn, and I love that so much. In a way, he's a subversion of the careless genius trope so many people think he falls into. Reed is fiercely loyal and caring of the people around him and won't hesitate to remind you of that. He can also do this thing with his eye. I really want you to look at this and just let that sink in for a second because it is so unsettling. That is honestly more terrifying than anything Ben has ever done. Pedro Pascal is the perfect actor to play Reed Richards. Am I only saying that because he's my favorite actor? A little bit. But if you've seen any of his work, it's clear as day that Pedro was born to play Reed. Just look at the way this man takes notes for his roles. Is that not the most Reed Richards thing you've ever seen? As an actor, he's a chameleon, transforming into every part he takes. If he didn't have that mustache in every role, you'd hardly be able to tell that it's him. And yeah, I'm really glad that he's keeping the stash. I've become so accustomed to it that he looks cursed without it. I mean, come on, just look at him in Wonder Woman 1984. It feels so wrong. It's okay if Reed Richards has a mustache, guys. I promise you, it's not the end of the world. Roles like Joel in The Last of Us, or Ezra in Prospect, incredibly underrated movie by the way, you really need to go watch it, show that he can play a serious and detached character who still cares at his core. Then, on the other stretchy hand, you can look at something like We Can Be Heroes, a very mediocre Netflix movie, but one where he gets to show his personality and how campy he can be. Smashing those two energies together gives you Reed Richards and is exactly what I'm looking for here. Judging by the leaked test footage that I totally haven't watched, he's nailed it. The MCU's take on Reed seems to be a brilliant and proven scientist turned children's TV host. Basically Bill Nye if he had stretchy powers. Man, I really hope he gets his own theme song too. I would make it go platinum all on my own. But giving him this new role is a very fun way to show how much he cares about his craft and naturally give him the Mr. Fantastic name. It's the exact kind of inspired idea that has me feeling so optimistic about the movie. A modern reinvention of his character that feels like it always should have been there. It's also such an easy way to build up the celebrity status for the team and demonstrate how Reed uses science to communicate with people and show that he cares. Even something like him having a rigid schedule of family dinner every Sunday at 8 on the dot shows how he has family time planned every week so he doesn't miss it and works it into his busy schedule. It's little details like that which show me that they've already put a lot of thought into this. They're already off on the right foot, so as long as they don't fall into any of the previous traps I listed, we should be in safe, stretchy hands with Pedro's Reed. But what is Reed without his better half? Sue Storm is the heart of the Fantastic Four. She's the glue that keeps this team together and a constant voice of clarity and reason for the family. Get it? Clarity? Because she's invisible? Listen, I thought it was good.
Wait, hold on. What's going on? Why is there nothing on the screen? Oh, okay. I get it. She's invisible. Very funny. Can we please just get some actual pictures on here now?
Yet somehow nearly every other mainstream adaptation of the team does her dirty, which is insane to me. At one point, she was arguably Marvel's most popular female character, and these movies have done nothing with her. They push her off to the side and make her feel irrelevant, hardly exploring her powers outside of force fields and invisibility. Sue doesn't get the depth she deserves as a character, and that needs to change. It's hardly a secret that each member of the team's powers reflect them in a way. Johnny is a literal hothead, Reed is constantly stretching himself in a million different directions, and Ben thinks he's a monster. With Sue, I think it's really interesting to see her through that lens of invisibility and insecurity. Someone who has constantly been looked over her entire life and worried that she wasn't good enough. She's also the protector of the team, filling in that motherly role well as she literally shields them and cares for them. But I'd also love to explore Sue on her own more and see who she is when she isn't part of the team. Recent comics have retconned her into being an archaeologist, and I love that change. It gives her a unique skill set that'll be incredibly useful and embraces the adventurous tone the team needs to embody. Making her an archaeologist gives her a much more important role in the group, and I am really hoping they adapt that here. Something I feel like the comics have only just started to touch on in recent years though is the fact that Sue is the most powerful member of the team, and it isn't even close. If you thought her abilities were restricted to just invisibility and force fields, you are sorely mistaken. It's not that she makes things invisible, she can manipulate light as it is. Sue is able to blind you without breaking a sweat. Hell, she could kill some of the most powerful people on the planet if she wanted to. Seriously, these villains better be thankful she's above that and doesn't start killing people. The potential of her abilities is genuinely limitless. She's practically a force of nature with how unstoppable these powers are once she masters them. These powers also open the door up to some incredibly creative action scenes. Whether it be using force fields in new exciting ways or manipulating light to her advantage, this movie needs to highlight how much of a tank she is. Showcase her to be the powerhouse of the team in ways that audiences never knew they needed. I want Sue to be the standout of this film, the character everyone comes out of the movie being blown away by. One of the earliest rumors about First Steps is that Sue would be the protagonist of the film, and I think she's the perfect choice for that. This is the best possible way to give Sue the attention she deserves. In making her the point of view character, they have no choice but to develop her. It's very easy to get attached to the other three with how unique their personalities and powers are, but having Sue as the lead will form a natural connection with the audience. If they're gonna do her right, this is the move. No more of her being looked at as nothing more than Reed's wife. She can stand alone and stand out as one of the coolest characters Marvel has to offer. Vanessa Kirby is as flawless of a casting choice as you can get too. I mean, come on, her name is literally Kirby. Considering Jack Kirby helped to create the team, it feels like this was meant to be. She's picture perfect casting and someone I completely trust to bring the best out of Sue. Something I'm very interested to see though is how they adapt her little brother. On the surface, Johnny is the most straightforward member of the team. As the Human Torch, he's able to control heat energy, so he thinks he's hot shit. And when you can literally turn your entire body into fire to back it all up, who am I to say no to that? We all know how Johnny can be. That man is obsessed with the spotlight. Incredibly reckless, quick-tempered, and obviously hot-headed, Johnny is an act-first, think-later kind of guy. That may get him to more problems than they'd like, but he's only ever doing it for the right reasons. Sure, he's a cocky, impulsive, and extremely vain himbo, but he's not a bad person. His energy is more golden retriever than a cruel jock, and it's important to get that right. Obviously, he's gonna tease Ben and they have their love-hate relationship, but that's just his way of showing that he cares. Surprisingly enough, we've actually gotten some really solid Johnny adaptations in the past. Chris Evans was perfectly cast in the story films, and Michael B. Jordan did a shockingly good job with the dreadful material he had to work with. But I still think we can do better. Externally, Johnny's on fire. He's constantly burning himself alive like an overcooked s'more, but the sheer scale of his powers have never been properly shown. This is someone who can burn hotter than a supernova and control heat itself. Do you know how hard that must be to control? The movies make it seem so easy, with him casually snapping a flame out of his fingers first try. But I want to see a version of Johnny struggling to control all that energy. Someone who learns the hard way what happens when he goes into a fight and loses his temper. Afraid of losing control and hurting the people he cares about, but too proud to ever show it, so he masks those fears with his reckless and self-absorbed charm. And despite being made of fire, he goes out of his way to give off this effortlessly cool demeanor. He's someone who knows exactly who they are and is proud of it, unafraid to ruffle a few feathers in the most negligent ways possible, but there's much more to him than just that. We've never really gotten to see a version of Johnny with layers to his character. He's usually just a careless prankster and womanizer. I need this movie to show Johnny for the brave and genuine hero that he is. Portray him as someone who charges into battle no matter the odds because it's the right thing to do. He's got loads of integrity and is a genuinely nice person when you get through that brash exterior he puts on, because deep down, Johnny struggles with insecurities. Before he became the Human Torch, he didn't really have a life. He was little more than a kid in high school and worries that he's nothing without these powers. He tries to make the most of them, but he doesn't want them to define him. It's a constant push and pull of worrying that he's not good enough as he's surrounded by some of the most talented people on the planet. And while he'll be the first to admit he's basically a man whore, he's also the only member of the family to not find true love. It takes a toll on him being so isolated in a sense, and I don't think we've ever seen that side of him explored. He's very flawed as a person, but always trying to do better. That is the Johnny Storm I want to see. I know a lot of people are concerned about Joseph Quinn's casting. I was too at one point. When his name was being thrown around in the rumor mill, I didn't think he had the right energy to play Johnny. I was hoping for it to be someone like Paul Mescal or Rudy Pankow. That being said, I kept an open mind, and because of that, he's won me over really quickly. Joseph Quinn is so quietly charismatic and witty, and I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for it. Listen to him in this clip here.
Are you in the middle of prep right now? Like, are you like...
I'm setting myself on fire every morning.
You're holding up very well.
Yes, thank you.
That is exactly the kind of person I want playing Johnny. I think a lot of people, myself included, had a hard time seeing him as anything other than Stranger Things Eddie Munson. But as I've watched more and more of his movies, like A Quiet Place Day 1 or Gladiator 2, it's become very clear to me how talented he is. This dude practically becomes a different person for every role, so I'm confident he'll do the same with Johnny. Seeing him in the wig already does a lot to convince me he was made for this. He's giving off the right vibes for a classic Jack Kirby 60s era Johnny Storm, and I can't wait to see what he does with the role. I think he's gonna surprise a lot of people. But here's the thing. No, seriously, it's time to talk about the thing. My bid is finally paid off. Ben Grimm is my favorite member of the Fantastic Four, which says a lot because they're all so perfect in their own ways. Reed has incredible shape-shifting abilities. Sue can control all of light while Johnny can heat. And then there's Ben, who's a horrifying monster. He absolutely got the short end of the stick, but Ben is special. He easily has the most depth out of the entire team. As the Marvel Universe's gentle giant, there is so much more to the ever-loving blue-eyed thing than just being a guy made of rocks. One of the kindest people you'll ever meet, cursed with this new appearance for his powers. Constantly struggling with accepting this new version of himself as the world brands him a monster without taking the time to get to know him. Despite how he may look, it doesn't change the fact that he's one of the most down-to-earth and relatable characters there is. Ben was a friendly face and someone everyone had nothing but nice things to say about. Despite that, he was someone who was battling inner demons. Becoming the Thing only physically manifested the way he feels about himself. A blue-collar everyman who was unfairly doomed with powers that could have ruined his life. No matter all the hard work he does and people he saves, he's always going to be judged for the way he looks. The Thing is possibly Marvel's most tragic character, but in spite of that, he manages to be the helpful hero he knows he has to be. It feels obvious to say, but Ben's arc in the movie should be about learning to accept his appearance. It's the most obvious step in his journey and would feel wrong to completely skip over it, so I hope that they do touch on it here. Given that they have him going on a blind dating show, I do think they're going to make it an important theme of the movie, which is great to see. Not only is that idea really clever, but it's a fun way to directly comment on his story head on. It also means that he's bound to meet Alicia Masters in this film, which I think is hugely important. Alicia never gets the respect she deserves. The movie's basically skipped over her entirely. As Ben's blind girlfriend, she represents his rock and someone who's constantly there for him. Alicia is there to help Ben understand it doesn't matter how he looks and that she loves him regardless of it. I need to see their relationship develop over the film and that be the way they resolve his arc. You can have Ben reject her at first because he's afraid of opening himself up to someone new, worried that he'll just hurt her and insecure about himself, thinking that she deserves someone better. Only after a near-death experience with a purple planet eater can he realize he can't waste time on Earth not being with the person he loves. It's a huge step in his development into learning to accept himself, and it better be fully fleshed out in this film. They could also play around with the idea that Ben is an outcast among his peers. Reed and Sue are married, while Johnny is her younger brother. They are a literal family, while he's just a rocky fourth wheel, which would make for a terrible wheel in real life. He's very much so different from the rest of them and feels isolated because of it. If we're gonna do this family dynamic right, then we need to show Ben's growth into accepting his place on the team and realizing that he belongs. Constantly worried that he doesn't fit into the real world and at home before they help him realize that family isn't exclusive to blood or legal documents. His bond with them is strong enough to break through that rocky exterior and redefine what it means to be a family. And the way they should develop that is through his rivalry with Johnny. Have it go from two people who can't stop arguing with each other to genuine friends with a brotherly bond. They'll still insult each other to no end, we are not going to miss out on that, but they're also going to care for each other as Johnny makes Ben feel welcomed into the family. Sometimes the ideal family is a stretchy nerd, his invisible and overpowered wife, her hot-headed f***boy young brother, and a lovely sad man made of rocks, and that is perfect to me. So what is the best way to adapt the Thing? I'll tell you what it isn't. Don't make him a contract killer for the government. Whose bright idea was it to turn the ever-loving blue-eyed Thing into a murderer? Why did Fantastic give him 55 confirmed kills? Why did they make his iconic catchphrase, "It's clobbering time," something that his brother said to him before he beat him? God, I'm sorry, this movie gets me more heated than Johnny himself. Honestly, my least favorite film of all time. As long as Marvel doesn't do any of that, we're bound to get the best version of the Thing. I do appreciate Chicklet's version of the character, especially his dedication to wearing that insanely bulky and uncomfortable suit, but I do wish we got to see more layers of him. He's also missing out on one of Ben's most defining features, that being his Jewishness. Ben Grimm is Marvel's most prominent Jewish superhero, and yet you'd never be able to tell that in any of these adaptations. The movies completely skip over it, despite it defining who he is as a person. Somehow, our best example of this comes in Spidey and his amazing friends of all places. I'm telling you, that show has no right to be as good as it is, considering the fact that it's catered towards actual babies. While they couldn't outright say it at the beginning, Ben's Jewish identity has been there since the start. It's no secret that Ben was heavily inspired by Jack Kirby, who is Jewish himself. Benjamin Jacob Grimm takes his first and middle name from Kirby's father and Kirby's real first name, along with him pretty much being based off of a golem from Jewish folklore. It is an instrumental part of Ben's upbringing and who his character is today. This is the same guy who sends Moon Knight a Hanukkah card every year. So if you can't tell, it's really important that they get this part of his character right. For once, I'm actually feeling very hopeful about something like this because not only is director Matt Shakman Jewish, not only do they have a synagogue on Yancey Street, but they cast the perfect actor for the job. Eben Moss-Bachrach has the potential to be one of the all-time great comic book movie castings. Ever since I saw someone mention his name for Ben, he was my choice from that moment onward. It's actually insane how picture-perfect Cousin is for the Thing. He's got the blue eyes for the job and everything. Okay, you can take that picture off the screen now. Those eyes are way too striking to look at for too long. You could just get lost in them. In a way that lines up scarily well, he also grew up in New York City just like Ben did. I'm honestly starting to think that he's just the Thing in real life. I don't think Eben is going to be doing any method acting and turning into a rock, believe it or not, so it's really great to hear that he is a perfect voice for this role. It's just the right amount of gravelly mixed with his local New York accent to sound exactly how I always imagined Ben too. But most importantly, he's Jewish. Marvel has a very long history struggling with casting Jewish characters, so I'm very happy to see that they went with such a fitting choice in Eben. Eben's casting is a monumental achievement and someone who I think is absolutely gonna kill it in this role. I cannot wait to hear him in action more than anyone else. He's gonna rock. I'm sorry, do you know how hard it was to wait this long to make a rock pun? Something else I quickly wanted to touch on outside of the core four are their kids. It's been heavily rumored for a while now that Franklin Richards would appear in the movie, and I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't even mean to make that pun there. I'm only realizing what I did reading it out loud now. I've seen some people apprehensive about adding in a kid this early into the team's existence in the MCU, concerned that it'll take the spotlight away from the four and how they'd rather just get a great adaptation of the team first. And I understand that to an extent, but every single Fantastic Four adaptation I can think of has resolved around only those four characters. Bringing Franklin into the mix is a great way to not only set this version apart from the rest, but to also start telling some fresh stories that we haven't seen before. Plus, it also really helps establish the family dynamic when they're all caring for this kid, trying to make sure that the most powerful mutant of all time gets a good upbringing. To put this into perspective for you, the Fantastic Four comics have been around for 63 years. Franklin has existed for 56 of those years. The status quo for the last few years has had him being around, so I think it makes a ton of sense to use him in this film. His inclusion completely changes the team relationship for the better, and I could not be more excited about the direction they're taking them, especially considered his connection to the villain of the film, Galactus. I can't tell you enough just how excited I am that we're finally going to get a good version of Galactus in a Fantastic Four movie. The fact that the leaked footage showed he's going to have an accurate appearance brings a tear to my eye. This is so long overdue. We can finally wash the stink of that 2007 version out of our mouths. I'll never understand for the life of me why they made him an angry fart cloud. Whoever made that decision needs to be shot. When it comes to talking about Galactus, there's a common misconception that he's a Thanos-level threat and how he should have been the next big bad of the MCU. I get why you'd think that because he's a danger to the entire world as he threatens to eat it like an apple, but Galactus is not that kind of villain. They literally beat this dude in his first appearance by threatening to shoot him with a gun. They didn't even have to shoot him, he just backed off. Also, he was green and looked like this for a little bit. That's not really important to the video. I just thought it's funny to bring up because, like, why did they do that? They changed it in the very next issue, so they knew it was wrong, but, like, it's so cursed seeing that first appearance nowadays. I think Galactus is used best as a reoccurring villain who comes in at the worst time, as they have to beat him in new creative ways. He's best presented as a force of nature, something that will happen no matter what and you can only plan for. It's like trying to fight a hurricane, it's impossible to stop. But for the Fantastic Four, that's just another problem for them to solve. What makes him so great as a Fantastic Four villain is that he isn't someone they can exactly square up to. They have to outsmart him and stop his master plan, and that is where Franklin comes in. In the comics, Franklin has some huge ties to Galactus. At one point, he even becomes the new Galactus. It's crazy. This kid is so powerful that Galactus himself has even admitted to fearing him. It's a really interesting wrinkle added to both characters and something I think needs to be explored here. On the day Franklin is born, have Galactus send the Silver Surfer to Earth with an offering. He will spare their world in exchange for Franklin. He can feel his power from across the universe and fears the kind of damage he could cause one day. More than just his own death, but the end of the cosmos itself. It would create an impossible scenario for the Fantastic Four to solve their way out of and give us some fresh motivation for Galactus. Also, considering the fact that this takes place in a different universe, they could do something mind-blowing and actually have Galactus win. Imagine the movie ending with him destroying their Earth and the Fantastic Four fleeing to the 616 universe for refuge, fully knowing that he's coming there next as they have to try and stop him again. I would pass out in that theater. It would be such an insane way to end the film. I hope to see something like that in the movie because it is exactly the kind of scenario that best fits the Fantastic Four and something I want to see the team in the future. Less of a focus on the big superhero action and more so showing the emotional stakes as the team is dealing with more scientific and philosophical questions. What really sets the Fantastic Four apart from other teams like the Avengers and X-Men is that they aren't really traditional superheroes. Sure, they go out of their way to save lives and fight crime when necessary, but their motivation is exploration. It's something all other adaptations have struggled with accurately portraying and has gotten lost with audiences. This team is made up of scientists and adventurers first and foremost. Their priority is always challenging the unknown as they look to discover what lies ahead in this vast and expanding universe. All of the problems they come across are because they sought them out in their research. Whether that be discovering an underground subterranea and fighting a mole man, or finding a new alien species and making peace with them, it's all in the name of science. It's so important to me that this film establishes their motivations here. Let us follow this family on their journey into mystery as they deal with the consequences of that. They're not superheroes in the traditional sense, and that's what makes them so special. It's so weird to me how the other two movie universes tried to make them celebrities and government contractors instead of leading into their defining characteristics. As long as this movie portrays them as explorers trying to understand and navigate the universe, I'll be happy. The Fantastic Four were the most popular superhero team of all time at one point. Their campy stories were filled with fresh and exciting wonder that captivated audiences for decades. Due to a few failed adaptations and Marvel's self-sabotage, they've lost a lot of their cultural staying power, which sucks to see. It would not be an exaggeration at all to say they saved the company upon release. When the Fantastic Four came in as an idea from Lee and Kirby that was a massive surprise hit. It helped pull them out of the hole they were in and inspired Marvel to make more and more superheroes. While I wouldn't say the MCU was in the same position, the Fantastic Four could have a very similar effect here. This movie can do a lot to get audiences invested in the universe more than ever before and launch them back into the spotlight where they belong. So many people have been dying to see them done right for decades, and I want it on the record that I need this more than all of them. This movie is a chance to give me all I've ever wanted and more, so I really hope that they take full advantage of that. With an incredible director in Matt Shakman, a proven writer in Josh Friedman, and one of the most stacked casts you've ever seen, I have so much faith in this movie. I honestly can't tell you the last time I've been this excited for a superhero project in general. It's the thing I'm looking forward to most next year and something that will forever change the MCU in the best possible ways. Most importantly though, they're bringing Herbie into live action, baby. Hell yeah! That's what we love to see. That's the GOAT right there. He will save the MCU and send it to the next boom period. Let's make it the Herbie cinematic universe from now on. This is all I want to see forever. Alright, you know what? On that note, I'm gonna go ahead and end things here. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed what I had to say, feel free to give the video a like and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. What would you like to see in this next Fantastic Four movie? I'd love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And if you want to see another video like this, you can click right over here. If you don't do it, they're just gonna re-release Fant4 Stick instead. So please, if there's one thing you need to do today, subscribe so we can finally get out of that hell. I'm so sick of having to think about that movie.